mobile payments. And there are a few points that I would like to make here. First of all, almost for the first time in payments, there has been a consensus abroad regulators that legislation was needed. Sepa has been primarily developed as a market-driven project as a reaction to a regulation adopted by the regulators on cross-border payments. But since migration was relatively slow, in particular for direct debit, all market participants, or almost all market participants, and the co-regulators have agreed that it was necessary to regulate on the issue. All European institutions also agreed that proper governance arrangements are needed for the success and credibility of Sepa. And on top of the governance arrangement, there is also an urgent need for proper communication about Sepa. And finally, many of the topics I have just mentioned, which have been addressed in the Sepa and date regulation, are also potentially relevant in a card market context. Let me give you a few examples: interoperability, reachability, the requirement to use certain standards, and rules impacting on the business models. All these elements have been addressed in the end date regulation, and they are also relevant in a card context. There were some good reasons why cards was not part of the Sepa end date regulation. This is explained in the introduction to the regulation, what we call the recital, which makes it clear that the Commission and the regulators considered it was not appropriate at this stage to cover card transactions, since, I quote, common standards for union card payments were still under development. And this approach has been broadly endorsed by the Council and by the Parliament, who urge the industry to develop standards, who also urge the industry to introduce pan-European competing card schemes over a relatively short time frame. A lot has been done, has been achieved by the industry, and in particular by the European Payment Council, to open the door to an integrated card market in Europe. But there is still a long way to go, and I will briefly mention 5 key challenges which the Commission considers should be addressed urgently. The first one is standardization. There have been some progress, notably within the framework of the European Payment Council with the development of the standardization volume under the Sepa card framework. And there have been also some industry initiatives taking specific steps for the different part of the payment transaction change. Nevertheless, we need urgent progress there, and we feel that more tangible results are still outstanding. In particular, certification is an issue of concern. We notice that certification procedures are not harmonized across Europe, which result in excessive cost redundancies for card and terminal manufacturers. Some initiatives have been launched, such as the CAS initiative, but results so far are limited. The second main challenge is the introduction of a pan-European card scheme. The Commission welcomes the Sepa-wide functionality of existing international card schemes. But we wouldn't like the drive for an integrated Sepa to lead to a loss of efficiency, and also to lead to a loss of some efficient debit card schemes, primarily at the domestic level. These schemes still represent a majority of payment schemes across Europe and provide an attractive and competitive product for users and merchants. A new EU-wide card schemes would certainly strengthen competition, and we therefore welcome the initiatives which have been under development for quite a while, such as the EAPS initiative, the Money initiative, or the Payfair initiative. But clearly, we need action. We need urgently to move beyond the pilot project phase and feasibility study stage to a fully fledged pan-European scheme. A third key challenge is competition and market access, which have to be ensured all over Europe. A number of issues still need to be addressed to create a level playing field, such as, just to name a few, the issue of the multilateral interchange fee for cards, which I have already mentioned for direct debit, and the existence of a wide variety of levels of fees, which leads to the absence of a level playing field across Europe. Secondly, the issue of cross-border acquiring and the difficulty for retailers to use the services of an acquirer established in another member state. And the third main challenge is, or one-third main challenge is the restricted access for some operators to payment schemes and to payment accounts. A fourth key challenge is governance. Governance is always a crucial topic in payments. And the Commission always look at the situation on the market to ensure that an open and transparent coordinated process is in place. There is a need for both sides of the market to be part of the process. In the card case, the providers, but also the vendors and the customers. The EPC has established the card stakeholder group. The governance seems to be working better for cards than it used to work for credit transfer and direct debit in the past, but only experience will tell whether this system of governance for cards is fully satisfactory. Finally, Sepa compliance. The EPC has adopted a framework, the Sepa card framework, and the European Central Bank and Eurosystem has established terms of reference for Sepa card schemes and infrastructures. But the interpretation and the respect of these requirements seems to depend primarily on self-assessment. The question therefore arises whether there should be stronger mechanisms in place to define, monitor, and enforce Sepa compliance. So these are the challenges we have identified in the card sectors. As you can see, there is plenty of food for thought. But we would also like to look at the future, because we clearly see Sepa as being, as I said, a springboard for innovation and for new payment instruments. And there are three areas where we consider that the Sepa core instruments could significantly help to drive innovation in Europe. First of all, online payments, secondly, mobile payments, and thirdly, even if it is not a payment in itself, electronic invoices. All these areas would considerably benefit from more integration at European level. First of all, electronic payments. The importance of electronic payments is increasing with electronic commerce. The e-commerce market was estimated to be approximately 250 billion euro in 2009, with a significant growth potential. E-commerce provides a unique platform for the development of innovative e-payment solutions. They can offer and should offer more choice for consumers who should be able to use different and competing payment models for completing an online transaction. Regarding payments, the dramatic growth of smartphones opens the way to sophisticated payment solutions on a broad scale. An important driver for mobile payments is convenience and speed. For example, the possibility to swipe your mobile phone at point of sales or public transport ticketing. And finally, the link between payments and invoices. Sepa and electronic invoices are mutually beneficial initiatives. There have been some recent studies carried out by the European Commission who conclude that simply replacing paper invoices by electronic invoices could generate savings of up to 240 billion euro over 6 years. So there are plenty of opportunities there, but we notice that progress has been slow and that a number of challenges still remain. The first one is interoperability. There is a need for more interoperability. Today, the reach from a sender to the recipient, especially on a cross-border basis, is limited, and there is a number of hurdles which result in a high level of market fragmentation. In some cases, in particular for mobile payments, there are more relevant market actors than in a traditional payments, and of course this adds to the complexity of finding interoperable solutions. Secondly, standardization. I have already mentioned standardization for cards. There are a number of industry initiatives, but here also insufficient tangible results have been made at European level. And in some cases, such as in electronic invoices, it is difficult to reflect in the standards the different requirements from users and from industry in a single standard. A third challenge is transparency. Transparency from a payment user point of view is a critical issue. Users should be made aware of the cost of using the different payment means. Otherwise, they have no means to consistently identify and use the most efficient payment instrument. There remain too often hidden costs between service providers and between the merchant and the payment service providers, and this stands in the way of increased transparency. And finally, the last challenge is payment security. Payment fraud is increasingly moving from physical to remote payments. Consumers are exposed to this more and more frequently, and that has been, the risk of fraud has been identified as being one of the main barriers to the development of electronic commerce in Europe. So we have a number of challenges here, both for the cards and for the electronic and mobile payments, upon which the Commission services have been reflecting over the last year approximately, and the European Commission intends to launch a very wide public consultation of all stakeholders in order to identify the remaining problems and to explore potential remedies. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, we have here a tremendous task ahead of us. We have to finalize the Sepa and date regulation, and we have to look at what should be done for electronic and mobile payments and for card transactions. This is necessary to create a modern, competitive, and innovative payment systems in Europe. A market whose rule and standards could be used in other parts of the world and become the basis for global standards, but we still have some key challenges to meet, and I think we all have a duty here, industry, users, regulators at European level, regulators at national level, national central banks, to work together to develop a comprehensive approach to address the different challenges and to achieve and implement a first-class, a world-class integrated payment system in Europe. Thank you.